5 6.
Okay.
I'll be alive.
I can mute, right?
Oh, yes, Nellie. Oh,
Hi, Ponzo.
why am I seeing you on my tablet and not on the computer? Hi, Nellie. Hi. Hello? Okay, I'm seeing Nellie on my tablet, but not on the computer screen. Mm. Hi, Nellie. Hello? Hi, Nellie. I have no idea what's happening here. I have no idea.
Oh, so Felix is trying to join the call.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing Nellie? Huh?
Hi, Joseph. Okay. All right. Okay. Hi, Ponso. Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Hi, Nellie.
I'm fine. Hi, Chikomeni. I'm cool. Hi,
Hi,
Prof.
Prof. Hi. Hi, Nellie.
Hi, Ponso.
Finally.
Yeah, finally, except we're missing Felix.
Oh,
So let's give our technical person 1 minute to see if we can connect Felix from UNESCO in Nairobi. Yeah. Apparently, he's not online. So maybe in the interest of time, we can just start. Okay. Okay. Joseph sending me a message. Let me just check.
so
Yeah, I'm
I'm
just
going to
waiting for
forward you
Joseph.
the
Just told me to wait.
original email address, and you can forward it to the glad and on. Yeah. On, on.
Yes, excuse me for a minute, please. I'm back. Technology challenges. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to ask you to do is that I was talking to a technical person, is that apparently the normal Hangout was having problems synchronizing, right? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and so what we're going to do is that, so he's restarting the presentation. So what I'm going to ask you, if it is possible, if you do have the document that we're going to discuss in front of you, so we can then just kind of go through that document as we plan to do on screen. Does everybody have the document with? Okay, fantastic. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. So thank you very much. So the before we go into the document, so the agenda had been that we would have Dr. Felix Tote from UNESCO, who commissioned this work, to give us a little bit of background about the program, but our technical person is still trying to track him down. So we can just continue, and I'll give you a bit about the background, and then I was going to go through the document that I sent you, and then at the end we're going to actually then have some questions and discussion around the document that we've shared with you. Is that okay for everyone? Okay, fantastic. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm opening the document on my side. So the context of the project is that about a year or so ago, Dr. Tote from Cameroon, who works for UNESCO, commissioned some work with us, and I did this work together with Ponso, and the work was to I think I probably spoke to most of you about this project. The project was really to try and assess how ASM training is happening on the African continent. And the idea was to provide some evidence to guide how we can actually now go forward in terms of what strategies we could take around making sure that we're providing training that is not anecdotal, that can be sustainable in terms of the programs that are put in place. So as a follow-up, Dr. Tete then asked us to do this very short piece of work, a desktop study, to actually put forward a framework for. I heard a quacking. I don't know who's got a duck in their office. So Dr. Tote then asked us to develop a curriculum framework for ASM, with the idea that we would then perhaps approach people that could support such a program. And then I see, if you can just give me a minute, I see Dr. Teto is sending me an email on my iPad. Trying to see, yes, he's actually asking me if the meeting is on or not. So I think he's probably having challenges with being connected, but hopefully our technical person will be able to sort him out while we continue, and then he can always add on more information on the background of the program once we have him online. So anyway, so he then tasked us to develop this framework for the curriculum, with the idea that we can then perhaps attract interest from different quarters, different entities, and different organizations to perhaps support the development of a curriculum that would be implemented via tertiary institutions. So I worked closely with Akua, who is a PhD student at WITS, and what we developed is what we then sent around to yourselves, and the basis of what we put together was based on the findings of that initial work that I referred to, that spoke to the challenges around being able to have sustainability of training programs on the African continent, that the training programs themselves tend to be quite ad hoc, without no clear thinking about how they can be sustained beyond a donor-funded program, and that most of the training programs were targeting mining operators, and that I suppose this was probably driven by the fact that most of the challenges that are faced in the sector by the miners themselves are quite huge in terms of the impact, and therefore there is a bias towards addressing the challenges of the operators with no targeted thinking around how perhaps capacity is required for the people that are actually regulating the sector. We're talking about people working for government, we're talking about development practitioners, and how they can also be capacitated to make sure that when they think about leading on policy development for the sector, they'll be doing that from the perspective of actually fully understanding what the sector issues actually are. And therefore, the formulation of training that is targeting those decision makers is perhaps more the target of the kind of curriculum that is being thought of here. In the work that we've done is that we thought that perhaps the program, because we want to target decision makers, that it would best be named a policy and strategy program, so that it becomes more than just your technical how to do kind of program, but more in terms of how to provide skills and knowledge for decision makers. So obviously, because we are operating in an environment of the African mining vision, the direction of the program would have to be kind of from the premise of the transformative agenda of the African mining vision, and therefore the position of the vision with regards to the sector, particularly with ASM, about how ASM can support local entrepreneurship, lead to improved livelihoods, and advancing integrated rural and social economic development is the premise of what this program is also trying to do in terms of providing capacity. And so the objective of the program, we want it to be inclusive, so that all issues relating to ASM and their challenges are properly understood, so that decision makers can be equipped with regards to the requisite skills and competencies that would allow them to be thought leaders with regards to the sector and lead in terms of policy development and implementation. The idea is obviously, as an objective again, is to build a pool of ASM specialists that can undertake and pioneer innovative research in ASM, developing new frontiers and developing new methods around how to critically deal with ASM issues, and also targeting decision makers at international, national, as well as local levels, particularly those that are operating in communities where there is need for ASM issues to be addressed. So that's the title of the program, and those are the objectives of the program. So what we thought might be appropriate, instead of going through the whole document at once, we could give an opportunity for the people online to make some comments on what I've just presented before we move on to the next part of the document. Please feel free to come in. Who have we? We've got online. We've got Nku, we've got Ponso, we've got Akua, Chikomeni. Do you guys have any comments on what I've just presented?
I might be well ahead of the path that you want to take through, but I want to make sure it's answered. Do we have the target initial institutions? I mean, I've gone through the document, that's why I'm saying I may be asking questions that is the position. But do we have we identified institutions that we want to work with?
Sorry, say that again, Mku.
Have we identified the institutions that we want to work with?
Okay, all right. I think that maybe the question that you've just asked and what you've just said about maybe you're asking something that is towards the end of the document. I wonder if, and this is up to the people that are online. Would you rather I just go through the whole document and then at the end we can then just discuss it once?
And I mean, I'm easy. I can do whatever the group is okay with.
I think we should go through the document first, and then you can take questions afterwards.
Okay, if everybody's happy with that, I can do that. Okay, all right, okay. So in that case, I'll continue. So with regards to the, I see that there's some pictures happening on my computer. I think maybe the hanging out is finally synchronizing. I can see Ponso as well. But anyway, be that as it may. But because you've asked the question, let me quickly answer. We do have a plan about potential participants for piloting the program. We don't have specific institutions, but from the initial research that was done by CSMI, we identified institutions that we thought were low-hanging fruits, that were perhaps more ready than others to be able to pilot the implementation of this curriculum. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the next section was really around the target group. So the target groups that we are looking at in terms of stakeholders is that because we're looking at stakeholders that can actually champion the development of the sector and also champion these transformative initiatives that the African Mining Vision is aspiring for. So we're looking at policymakers, we're looking at donors and funders, we're looking at development practitioners, we're looking at leaders of ASM associations, even large-scale mining companies. I can give you an example of one company that I know that I was associated with in the past that actually had ASM practitioners as employees. So those ASM practitioners, obviously, one would want to make sure that they fully understand all the ASM issues and challenges. So civil society organizations, local stakeholders, here we're talking about perhaps local authorities or traditional authorities, as well as researchers and academics. So that is kind of the general group of that would be targeted by this curriculum. What we have done with regards to developing this framework is to provide an illustration about, just that kind of better demonstrates the kind of stakeholders that we're talking about. So in terms of the areas that they might be interested in or that they would actually be addressing. So for example, on policy, we'll be looking at legislators and policymakers. We'll be looking at technocrats. We're looking at policy analysts. We're looking at administrators. As far as researchers are concerned, we're looking at academics and students and consultants. And with regards to development work, we're looking at people that are working for donor or funding organizations. We're looking at practitioners working for SAME, some people that are specialists also working for development entities, whether they be multilateral or bilateral. We're also looking at people that actually advocate for the ASM sector's development, as well as community development specialists. The community development specialists that I'm thinking about here, as an example, would be community development practitioners, say within mining companies that need to implement programs that touch sides with the ASM sector. So that's kind of just an illustration of how we actually see how the target group can be aggregated into the different areas of interest. I'm just going to check, is this Felix here? No, this is Peter. Where is Felix? Oh, he hasn't managed to join us. Yeah, that's a shame. And then with regards to the program structure, so we've structured the program so that we're looking at different levels. So, and we have an illustration in the document that you have that talks to how that the program could actually be structured. So at entry level, where we would have the introductory courses, and those introductory courses will be at the level that is equivalent to post secondary school education. Apologies for using post-matric. I live in South Africa, so matric is not something that is common to everyone. But what I mean there is secondary school education. So before one goes to tertiary college or university. So that will be the level of teaching of exit that happens at the entry level. So it's actually introduction at an introductory level. There will be short courses, and those courses would also be applicable for professional development, as well as courses that can be offered as part of workshops and forums. Then at the intermediate, we have an intermediate level, and then we progress to what we're calling an expert level, and that's the advanced level. So at the advanced level, it will be courses or exit level. When people go through the assessment, or the outcome level will be at modules that can contribute to qualifications at the master's level or PhD level. So in the next section of the document, hi, I see Barbara has joined us. Barbara from Mintech, for those of you who don't know. So with regards to the introductory courses, as I indicated, we're proposing that we have some short courses that obviously would be, people would select the kind of courses that suit their needs depending on what their role is in the sector. And those courses would be typically courses that can run from anything from 3 days to 5 days. And these courses can actually then be aggregated towards obtaining a qualification, and may be used for people that are actually just wanting to have personal development as they work in the sector. For these introductory courses, we're looking at broad understanding of ASM issues, understanding what the key terms are. So really, this is for people that are wanting to interface with the sector but don't have any background with it. So kind of providing them with some understanding of what the sector is about. So we're talking about the concepts that most of us online would know about the ASM sector, some of the facts and principles that people are looking at with regards to sector, some of the rules that one follows, the theories that go with ASM, as well as some countries' context, depending on which institution is actually delivering the training in the local environment. And then the intermediate courses, this would be short courses that, if aggregated, would actually lead to a progressive certificate at an intermediate level. And these are designed to provide our participants with knowledge particular to the field, so that they can actually apply the knowledge and the skills, so as opposed to just having a basic understanding. It is we having the introductory level. Here we're talking more about actually applying the knowledge and the skills in a professional environment. Say someone is advising an institution about a strategy on ASM, so what the exit level would allow them to be able to actually independently apply what they will have learned for decision making, say for a mining company or in a development agency. So these will be able to be integrated by theme with other disciplines. And the idea is that we'll be able to draw on a variety of knowledge to be able to then recommend solutions for the challenges that, depending on the institution that the person is affiliated to. And the idea is that this can actually serve as an entry level. Once one is attained this particular qualification, they can use it as an entry level or a diploma or a degree qualification. And these credits can be used to, as I said earlier, can be aggregated to actually produce a certificate that may be transferable as credits to an undergraduate program. At the advanced level, these are courses that would be contributing or contributory to specialists who actually want to study at a PhD or master's level. I'm aware of some of you who have actually done master's and PhD research programs. So the courses that are provided at this level will be able to contribute to that. Yeah, so the idea is not just to first of all to sensitize the potential students on ASM issues, but also to increase the number of postgraduate students who would actually choose ASM as a topic for masters and PhD. So the idea is to have advanced level knowledge that can either contribute as a module to a PhD program, but actually also support somebody who is actually doing research at a master's or doctoral level. Yeah, so that's the structure of the program. As far as content is concerned, what we tried to do was to put it in the form of modules. And we aggregated 10 modules whose content is listed there with the titles on the side: an introduction to ASM, where we're talking about definitions and the kind of related basic issues, understanding of the ASM value chain for module 2, understanding of local context for module 3, and then module 4 to base it on impacts of ASM. And then module 5, as you know, gender in ASM is very important. So the idea is to actually have a module that talks to that. Then module 6 is about knowledge management. I think most of us online will know that we often observe duplication of efforts, repetition of efforts, because ASM knowledge generation is not being managed in a way that optimizes application, particularly for policy and strategy decision making. So the idea is to provide a module that facilitates decision makers in formulating appropriate knowledge management strategies in ASM. Stakeholder engagement, a module for module 7. In module 8, ASM policy and regulatory frameworks. This is a very important part. A lot of work has been done, and I think that there is a lot of material that can actually, if properly structured, can be used for formal, sustainable training programs to build the capacity of decision makers in the sector. The issues of what drives ASM and the opportunities for development is a very important aspect of supporting the ASM sector in terms of how it contributes to sustainable development. And we think it's important to have a module that targets specifically at that area. Finance is an aspect of ASM that is found very challenging, and we think that understanding the issues around ASM financing is very important. I'm currently working on a program where we've done some basic work of understanding. When people say access to finance for ASM, I think a simplistic approach is to say provide funding guarantees or provide loans. But one of the things that we found is that it's much more complex. The issue of the hows and whys of accessing finance for the ASM sector are much more complex than just providing development funds. And therefore, we think this is an aspect that decision makers really need to understand so that when they make recommendations for strategies, they're properly informed about what can work for the sector. The next few sections are really just very short sections on delivery. These are more going towards how we're going to take the program forward. And particularly, the reason I say that is because this curriculum framework is really meant to be a guide for developing actual curricula for specific delivery institutions. Therefore, a lot of the things around delivery will be very specific to the institution that will be delivering them. But obviously, when we develop a fleshed out document for guidance, we will have more details, but really the basic statement is that this is more driven by how each country actually, or each institution provides higher learning. And therefore this program, and this is driven by the understanding that if this program is going to be sustainable, it really has to be embedded and rooted in existing national frameworks. Because one of the things that we found in that research work that I mentioned earlier was that because the ASM programs are being done ad hoc, they're not rooted or embedded in existing frameworks run by people that own the space of guiding and regulating education. They then tend to not be sustainable. So, for example, admission requirements for a tertiary institution, for each institution in each country, they have ways in which this would be done. So the idea would then be to provide guidance so that each country can actually then structure that to suit, or each institution can structure that to suit its own country. The duration of the programs, for now, we base this on our understanding, because I work in South Africa, around notional hours for modules, but that is adaptable to in terms of the specific guidelines once we go into the piloting phase of the program. The method of assessment, again, I think there's generic understanding of how exit assessments are actually done, but different national bodies and accreditation, education accreditation bodies have different ways in which they approach this, and our guidance will be really to support the different institutions to actually be able to be aligned to their own accreditation bodies. Looking forward in terms of where this project is going, is that this now responds to the question that was asked by Mkuu about whether we had selected institutions where this training is going to happen. We haven't selected specific institutions, but the work that we did in 2016-2017 with CSMI and WITS, we identified, what we did was we kind of did, to call it a survey would mislead you into thinking we look at all the institutions, but we tried to look at a representative sample of institutions offering training on the continent. And out of those that we interfaced with, we then did an assessment of their readiness to be able to implement a program such as proposed by this curriculum framework. So the idea is that we're proposing that we pilot, once the curriculum is fully fleshed out, we pilot this curriculum with 6 tertiary institutions that best represent the African continent in terms of the African Union. The reason being because our program is supported by UNESCO, and also we want to be aligned with other programs that tend to look at that Pan-African approach to how we would actually cover and be representative of how we deliver the pilot. So we're looking at trying to have institutions in the pilot that would be part of the different regional economic commissions of the continent listed there. Obviously, we want to be able, because the idea of piloting is to test if this works, so we would want to be able to pilot this at the different levels, introductory, intermediate, and advanced. And also because we are also wanting to test the applicability of the curriculum to what we think is the target group. So obviously, in terms of the recommendations or guidelines for selecting participants for the training programs, we would want to cover as broad representation of the stakeholder basis as possible. Our terms of thinking is that it would be a pilot that would run over 12 to 18 months, including the evaluation of how we see the program is actually worked out, and so that we can make recommendations for then rolling out the program if the pilot is successful. So yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful. So maybe I can then give it to the audience to make comments and ask some questions. I think for those that I think I probably need to check in with our technical person to find out what's happening with the guys that are not on the video link, because we did have other participants that were simply listening in and are able to communicate with us through a typing in chat. So I need to just check in with that point. So if I may ask, are you in touch with our technical person about the rest of the group?
Yes, he's still trying to get hold of Philip.
Okay, all right.
But he's struggling.
He's struggling, yeah. Okay. And the other people that are not on video link?
They are listening in.
Okay. So I'm trying to see if we can get the chat room, but maybe we can start with the people that are on video link while we try to find where the chat is appearing on the screen for the people that are not on video link.
Maybe just to give additional information on the study that we conducted in 2016 in terms of the institutions that we identified. So the assessment criteria that we used then, we looked at the maturity. So we identified tertiary institutions which had an ASM training program. So the assessment criteria that we used included the majority of the ASM program. We looked at staffing and research capacity. We looked at institutional arrangements. We looked at infrastructure, funding, and support, financial support for students. And we identified the ASM school at Mintech, South Africa. We identified University of Mining and Technology, UMET, Ghana, Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology in Tanzania, School of Mines at the Copperbelt University. They actually have a diploma in small-scale mining. We also identified several courses from Zimbabwe School of Mines. We also identified CSMI. We also have a module that we run as part of our MSc course, and we also identified the ASM Training Center in Malawi. So yeah, those were the institutions that we would probably approach for the curriculum. Yeah.
Hello, please. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Please, I'm Peter Aroja Asian, University of Mines and Technology, Takwa, Ghana. Please, am I being heard?
Yes.
You are.
Great. Yeah, with respect to the institutions, did I hear one in Ghana?
Yes.
Yeah, the name wasn't clear enough, so if I can update myself, I'll be glad.
Yes, yes. We mentioned the University of Mining. Is it Mines and
Technology?
Mines and Technology in Takwa.
I think that could be University of Mines and Technology.
Is that in Takwa?
In Takwa.
Okay, yes, that's the one.
Ghana.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we are at the heart of small-scale mining in Ghana. We are driving the sector practically by association with the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners. We've been conducting training for them, and we're trying to come up with an official program on small-scale mining administration. So I think that this program on ASM policy and strategy can also be driven by our sector we show interest in contributing to the curriculum and whatever we can do to make it successful.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other comments?
Hello, can I comment? From my perspective, we'll be following proceedings, and wherever we have to make contributions, we are ready to do so. So I'm with you, please.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Here in Malawi, the institution which you have said is in the Muzuzu Artisanal and Small Scale Mining Training Center. Usually, basically, what we are doing is that we are training. We first targeted the artisanal miners themselves because they liked a lot of knowledge. They had a lot of knowledge gap. So we provide some training to them, but later on we found that other people, even from other universities, are becoming more interested in our activities. So we are trying to come up with a module targeting that kind of another level of people from maybe the government sector, from the academia, so that they should have more knowledge of ASM activities. Other with coming in on this program, I think we as a Muzuzu Artisanal Mining Training Center, we are very ready to work with this program, and the modules which have been suggested there, they are just very good, which I think will help to uplift the ASM sector here in Malawi. Of course, we are working with the TVET. I think we have TVET so in different countries. There are ones which are helping us much with technical support and with certification. When we conduct our trainings, they are the ones who provide us with the certificates for those for the training attendants. So I think this program, we are ready to work with it, and we can support in whatever we can. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Hi, can I join? Can I join in, Barbara?
Hi, Barbara.
Can I join in? Can I comment?
Yes, please.
I think the program is quite really articulated, and that framework, I think it covers a whole number of issues that are related to small scale mining that we have been picking up. And I think you are right to say that a lot of the programs that are being offered are really ad hoc. So I think we should really address this gap within the subsector. Can you see me?
Yes.
And also, I think you are right to say that there are people who are already practitioners that are already engaged in ASM, who will be happy to be part of this program. And as you have indicated, one of them will be Intech, obviously. I spoke to my colleagues this morning, and they were very excited for the program, to be part of the program. And in terms of the other institutions, academic institutions that you may be looking at working with, because I see that the program is really linked to sustainable development. And the University of Cape Town also is doing a lot of work around that area on mining and sustainable development. And then I think the University of Stellenbosch as well would be happy to look at the program. I'm just suggesting them, but I think those are other institutions that we can engage in implementing the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Anyone else? Yes.
Let me take this. I'm sure that also because since we had one program, Canadian embassy, lasted 1 year. I step training. It's hearing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So this program well implemented, but unfortunately wasn't delivered to the ASM. Additional, veterans they were linked with the technologies, but unfortunately it's not delivered to the ASM. So what I can see now, what some to this because I'm very, very sure with this kind of stuff. Knowledge. However, maybe in the future conversations here, again, and propose something more inputs, especially in the topics. For example, Tanzania has a very, very problem with the policy makers and lawmakers. So I would like also to one of the topics will know where to put it. Because we have a problem of mining development agreements of joint ventures, ASM and other players. Also, it would be very good policymakers and other practitioners understand what are the basics when ASMs entering APE or MAs that you can also reduce conflicts and misunderstandings with ASM. Of course, we have one problem. Surface rights and mineral rights. In Tanzania, nowadays, it's licensed insurance their lands, their license have been grabbed with some makers or funded district which they come into the same. Now, because you failed to pay the annual rates, now you are no longer taking your license. So this kind of stuff, I know, Professor, you can find it where that you put it. also understand, they have to learn. Yes, for me at least, I can start with this one, then
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. If I can perhaps ask us to comment on, so we provided some questions, and I think to a large extent the comments that you've given us have addressed some of those questions that we shared with you. Okay, the first one was whether you think the proposed program will address the challenges faced by decision makers in the sector. I think that the comments that we've had so far, I think, indicate that to a large extent, the proposed curriculum framework could address those or provide information to address those challenges. Does anyone have any more to share on that particular question?
Mine is a question, Prof.
Yes.
It's a question that we are all going to have to mull on. The fact that we know this is actually addressing some of the inadequacies that exist in past programs, it is also the issue of ongoing programs. We have people like, for AMDC, issue is we obviously cannot cover all aspects of it. I mean, you Prof know very well how to articulate the issues of why AMDs want to work with as many people as possible on this. But we need to know how best are we thinking of either partnering these guys that are already doing something that, for all intents and purposes, based on your study, we know is not sustainable. How then by the need to ensure that they come into our aid, or rather, let's all think of how best to bring them forward to make sure that what they are currently running is sustainable. And our avenue becomes the sustainability avenue for them. These are things that I want us to think of.
Yeah, no, yeah. Thank you very much for that comment, Mkuu. You're absolutely right. It's something that we will have to think about in terms of how we engage the people that are already running programs, those that we may, in our own, from our own understanding, think are not sustainable, or even the ones that we think can add value to what this program is trying to propose. I'm aware, as you say, that the AMDC has interventions around capacity building that we could actually think about how we can enhance. For example, your knowledge platform could be an opportunity for online training, because not all training has to be face-to-face. They can be distance learning, and if there already exist platforms which are at a Pan-African level that can actually be used, there's absolutely, I think it only makes sense that we actually exploit those synergies. I think that, yeah, I think that the one of the challenges is around not just the implementers of programs, but the funders of programs. Because if you look at the different bilateral funders, they have their reasons for supporting certain programs, and I think it's a case of how can they be persuaded to support programs that we as practitioners of the African continent we deem to be more sustainable, so that the funding can actually go further than just the duration of whatever donor program that they'll have. So I think you're absolutely right. It's something that we have to mull over. It's something that I think as the project moves towards finding partners, we will need to identify those potential partners and put all those other players and actually see how we can engage them effectively for what is proposed here.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
No, on my end, I'm good.
Okay, all right. I think the next question was what skills and competences, if you can think of any beyond what we've listed in the modules that are required by decision makers in the sector. I think the other question is in terms of the target group, do you think we have defined the decision makers that we think should be targeted for this training? I don't know if anyone, I think Barbara spoke to players with regards perhaps to delivery, potential partners that we could approach in terms of delivery. But do you think the groups that we're thinking are target groups to take up this kind of training? Are there any other groups that we have left out that you think we should include? Okay, I take that to say no. You think we've covered all the I suppose because the target groups are very broadly defined. So it kind of, I think, probably difficult at this. I think when we go to specifics, we might miss out groups, but when we define them as broadly as we did, you probably catch everyone in that. So Barbara, Chikomeni, Dr. Peter, and the Prof, all of you, and Ponso at WITS, do you think that these programs can be adapted to, or what is proposed in this curriculum could be adapted to what is currently on offer, if there's anything on offer in the countries where you work? Shall we start with you, Chikomeni?
Yeah, I can say some of the programs are on offer, but some are not. Some are not.
Okay.
Because here in Malawi, the ASM sector is not taken very much seriously. So the programs which are usually there, which target the ASM sector, it's maybe to do with the mining itself, maybe exploration, value addition, environment, and safety. Those other like programs which are proposing, I cannot say here we have had such kind of trainings.
Okay.
Yes. Maybe because they have introduced some courses, mining courses in the other universities like the science and the Polytechnic. So I've not actually seen their training curriculum, but maybe they can be there, but I'm not very sure. I'm not very sure.
Okay.
So I would just say that for now, most of those things which are there, they're targeting much maybe at very advanced mining, not the ASM sector.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay. So
I don't know.
Yes, Barbara.
I don't know how to do this, but my answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's yes.
Okay.
And I think the issue then is how you convince the institutions maybe to incorporate this program in their curriculum, especially at the entry level.
Uh-huh.
And I think it would be easy to convince people as an expert level, you know, because people already understand the broad issues around sustainable business affairs and how SM plays a role there. But I don't know because, for example, someone said a program in phosphate mining, but of late I don't see that happening. So I don't know why. So those are the issues we want to investigate. But from looking at the framework and stuff like that, and from a person like myself who has worked a lot in it, I think this is possible. And it's the framework that we propose, and it's good. Yeah, and it can be integrated at all levels.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think also from my side is yes, because currently what we have at undergraduate and postgraduate level, we only have that one module that we do as part of our MSc course, and at undergrad level we just do one presentation. Remember last year I was invited to just do one presentation on ASM. So yes, the curriculum framework you're proposing is quite exciting, and I think it will fill the gaps that we currently have in our curriculum, and I'm excited about it, and I'm happy to announce that the School of Mining Engineering is reviewing its curriculum, and one of the things that came out was the issues around social aspects of mining. So we are developing a course on the social aspects of mining, and I'm the course coordinator, so I will make sure that I will include most of the aspects of ASM. Yeah.
Okay.
Nellie, I'd like to speak on the case of Ghana because I'm very familiar with the Ghanaian context. In terms of your question, yes, the proposed framework can be adapted to Ghana's tertiary education. However, looking at recent events in the country on the ban on artisanal and small-scale mining, it has not been lifted yet. There have been a lot of issues around environmental due diligence on the part of artisanal operators. So if you look at the undergrad programs within the universities in Ghana, yes, they can, but we still have to talk about issues of financing and funding. How do you ensure that there's enough funding to support such a program at the undergraduate level and even at the postgraduate level? So your point earlier on about looking for funders or institutions that can fund in the long term is actually key and critical for the success of this framework.
Okay. So Mku, I'm going to put you on the spot because you have a continental perspective. In terms of where you're thinking of going with capacity building in the ASM sector on the continent, how do you think this the proposed structure in this framework, how does it align with where you think ASM capacity country, power outage. uh, you know, it was power outage. We live in an African country. So I don't know if we're able to get, are we going to be able to get them back? Okay. Yeah, on my cell phone. How do you mean? Oh, no, the electricity is back. So the computer is fine now. Yes, but I don't know if, will they be back on? Okay, all right. Team viewer, I'm sure. Oh, good. Okay, thank you. I lived in a developing country. So the electricity just went in the middle of a conversation. Anyway, I think we were going towards the end of our allocated time so that we don't overrun and let people go to their other appointments. I think maybe I can just quickly go through the last questions. I think it was, I think the number 5, do you think the proposed content broadly captures crucial issues? What topics and themes do you think should be added? I think we've had some comments around that, but feel free to add more. And then broadly, what aspects of the curriculum do you think we should consider given the context in which this program is proposed? So if you think of any contextual things like SDGs, which I think Barbara already mentioned, African mining vision in terms of the Pan-African approach, or anything that may be regional or global that we should think about, conflict minerals. I know there's changes around whether Trump is trumping. And then lastly, of course, is asking if you would be okay with being considered to support how we take this program forward with regards to the piloting of the curriculum and also any other developments that are linked to this effort, whether you would be open to walk the journey with us.
We are all willing.
Oh, I seem good. Volunteered everyone. Okay, all right. I think one of the things that I'd been hoping for is that those people that were not able to participate by what you call video hangout, I think it's called, that we will be able to get their questions typed in, but I couldn't quite get the technology. So I think what I could let you know is that we're going to follow up with each one of those individuals that wanted to participate. We'll have individual Skype calls with them, so that we can also capture their thinking around what is being proposed. And the outputs of all that interaction are going to be documented, and we'll be sharing them with you, as well as the discussion that we've had today. So I think any aspects of what we've discussed, please feel free to provide any additional comments now if you'd like to.
Okay, I have something. Can I add something?
Yes, please, Chikomeni.
Okay. The other thing which I've discovered, like I would say, for the context of Malawi, and I know that's an African problem, that you find that the policy makers, you train them because some of this content is targeting them. So you find that you train them, but when they come back, they don't implement anything on the ground, especially in the context of the OS or the ASM sector, because they think that maybe it's a disorganized sector. So you find that they are trained. They go outside, they travel, they fly, but when they come back, for them to implement what they have learned on the ground to pass it on, they just stay in their offices. So I hope this program maybe will change that kind of perception in terms of the policy makers, the decision makers. Otherwise, then sometimes you will just be on the same level instead of progressing. So I hope we need to emphasize much in those programs to these policy makers. Otherwise, they are letting the ASM sector down very much because they don't put much effort on it. That's just one of the comments which I wanted to make.
I wonder, Mkuu, if I keep picking on you because the reason why I'm picking on you with respect to this is because what Chikomeni is raising around how the players that influence policy or national strategic development, how the current Pan-African approach to policy development, or how something like this. We don't have to answer, but it's just a question that I'm putting out there to say maybe there are some solutions that are Pan-African or the Pan-African debate that talk to, or programs that talk to trying to address how something like this could be addressed.
The unfortunate part of strategies are always going to be, but when we speak of African policymakers and we speak of interventions that are supposed to be led by African policymakers, we have how can I put it, chicken and egg scenario. The example being, let's take off from what Chikomeni has just said. Most of these policymakers that receive this training will have requested for it. It's not just being picked from nowhere. Most of them will have actually requested for it. And then the unfortunate part of it is they receive it, and then they go back home. And the one thing that they enjoy the most during their training was the shopping hours to utilize the DM that had been received during the training. Now, the unfortunate part of all this is we can't then keep pushing because there's also the cabinet issue. Now, this is why we actually I feel like that is tertiary level involvement, then we know not just issue of policy makers that we're dealing with, per se, and like I said, the target will then go beyond just policy makers. What Komen is saying, yes, is reputable, but the fact that we are targeting more than just policy makers is more or less our fallback position in terms of part of the strategy as to why this might actually be slightly different and effective. So that's the point of view that I'm giving.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one comment regarding gender and children violence. So some of the policy makers, they will not really understand what we call gender-based violence. Yeah, sometimes you can find, for instance, we have in Tanzania gender desks for especially for women. So when a woman goes to the police station, whatever, talk to the police officer, when she say, all right, I have been beaten by one minor or something. They say, okay, just bring him here. There are some misunderstandings on this kind of stuff. So whenever we are going to deliver this knowledge, we need to disclose, to put all these things well known to policymakers. Those gender-based violences, they have to understand, have to know, if you do this, if you abuse children or a woman, minds, you as a minor, and of course the policymaker can also put some of these bylaws in an appropriate way. So I think there have been some bylaws that are even beyond the acts. So they should understand what I think you understand my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally understand that the issues that the sector is facing. We need to make sure that the people that lead the debate in policy formulation make sure that the policies actually address those issues from a point of understanding what the actual challenges are. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so it's 5 minutes past our allotted time. I would like to thank you all very much, and that this is the beginning of a conversation. We will, as we work on the developing this curriculum framework further, we will come back to you on a one-on-one basis, whether through Skype or email, if there's any issues that we think you can help us think through and capture in the actual framework that is going to be proposed going forward. So on that note, thank you very much. And I would like to thank Akua for facilitating the arrangements of the workshop, and to all of you for participating and making the time. I know that you all have very busy schedules and you had to take time off your busy schedules to do this. And our technical person who is in the background has done a lot too. I know nothing about this video. I learned about video hangout the day before yesterday. So it was very good to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and we tried. And for those who might still be online, who were not able to join us on video hangout, but can hear me, apologies that we could not interact as effective as we wanted. I will get back to each one of you individually, and we capture your thinking around what is being proposed here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much to all of you, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
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 Bye.